Oh, g'day scrappers. Yeah, I thought I'd do a video today on how and why I sort my plugs for gold pins. Most of the gold pins come off computer equipment, and some from printers, and then mixed eWaste. But mostly it's from computers, printers, and telephone equipment. Yeah. Now, I sort my plugs basically because I get quite a lot of plugs, and if I don't sort them, the job just becomes a lot bigger later on when you go to remove the gold pins out of the plugs. So, like over here. So here's a bucket of plugs with gold pins, and as you can see, it's all mixed. Now, if I was to go about taking out the gold pins out of all the plugs out of this bucket, right? I'll do this one, then I'd get another kind, I'd get another oddball thing, I'd get one of these probably, or something like that. So every plug is a different process. Because some pins you want to get out of, you got to pull them out. Other pins you've got to cut off. And so what I found is like these barrels here were for gold for plugs with gold pins, and I've been sorting through now. As you can see, it's all mixed stuff that I need to go through. Now, if I was to like I said, if I go to take out the gold pins out of this, that's going to require one kind of tool. This one's going to require another kind of tool. This one's got another kind of tool, and so on. And so if I don't sort it, it's just a real nightmare to start processing, taking out the pins. So when they're sorted out like this, then when I go to take out my gold pins, I can take out all the gold pins out of these ones, and I can just continue with the same thing, and I know where they're coming from. Now, with these kind of plugs, these gold pins are mostly partially plated. I basically put gold pins into two categories, fully plated and partially plated, because they kind of get processed a little bit differently. And so these ones here are mostly partially plated. So when I'm taking out all these gold pins out of these particular plugs, I can throw them straight into the partially plated bucket of pins. These pins these are actually got pins rather than having to pull them out. They got most of them are fully plated pins. So like here, see these pins here, they're fully plated all the way. So when I cut these off and remove this plastic, these pins can go straight into the fully plated. They don't need to go through the first process with partially plated pins. So pretty much everything with gold pins, like from the back of floppy drives and DVD drives, pins that I remove off circuit boards and stuff, these mostly are all partially plated. What I'll do is if there is fully plated, if there's parts where there's no plating, I'll just cut that off. If I can't cut it off, then I'll throw it in with the partially plated pins. But anyway, so you don't really have to sort your plugs. Basically, there's only two categories of pins, really. So if you just wanted to have them all together, but I just find it's a lot easier to process one type of pin at a time, like all these video plugs. So these are another kind of job. They're a different job than these pins. So when I'm doing these, I like to do these all at the same time. Same over here. These are mostly USB plugs. Okay, and so the USB plug, we've got to get those pins out of there inside. So it's another kind of process. So I like to keep these separate. So I'm doing one kind of thing at a time. And these ports, it's a different job. Over here, we've got these, oh geez, I'm just trying to think. Yeah, well, we've got these little plugs here, again, they're a different process, right? And so they're going to need a different kind of tool, so I keep them separate. Again, these ones here, a different process, different tools, so I keep them separate. These are from server boards, so they're all got the pins inside the plates, a bit like that. So these are a different process because these have to be cleaned off, cut off these little plugs. So yeah, so basically keeping everything separate. RJ plugs from telephones. These are probably the hardest, the most time consuming things to take plugs out of. So it's good to keep them separate too. Probably be the last thing I do. So basically, so as you can see, this bucket here is a bucket that's been filled up with plugs over time. And now the one thing I noticed with this bucket is actually from an old, from way before I used to clean my plugs. But as you can see here, this plug, okay, this is going to go into here, but you can see these little pins, and if I can get my pliers, right, now you can see here I've removed all the pins out of these plugs, and the reason simply is because, as you can see, this container is heavy, it's full and it's very heavy. So by removing these plugs, I make the load a little bit lighter. It doesn't really help speed up the process of getting at the pins. This one is just, I remove these just so this whole thing is a little bit lighter to carry around. And then you've got these plugs here, which are off these ribbon wires. Same deal. Now, as you can see, you can't see the pins here, whereas these ones here are all clean and you can see the pins. So when you go to pull the pins out of these plugs, I'm ready to go. It's all ready for me. I just remove the pins and throw this away. Whereas this hasn't been cut properly, and so I need to do two jobs, or another job before I actually throw this plug into the pin. So this is the wrong way to cut plugs. You can see there's a bit of ribbon still left inside. So now what I have to do is I have to clean this, remove this plastic, get the second piece of plastic off, okay, and that's the insulated wire. And so now we've got the pin. So I really recommend that when you process your ribbon wire, right, don't cut the plugs off like that. If I could see. Right. So don't cut your plugs off like that and leave another job still left behind, okay? Because then after that you've still got to come back and you've got to go like that, right, and remove this extra little piece of wire to get your pin like that. So the best way to do it is straight off, rather than cutting the pin off here. Cut the plug off right at the end. So we've removed our plastic, we've got all our insulated wire there, and here's our pin ready to go. This will save you a real long time. So yeah, so basically, as I mentioned, the plugs are all pretty much from computer equipment. You've seen the ribbon wire. We've got these plugs here. So I can get the power supply unit out. So we've got our power supply unit, and you can see these plugs on the end, the black ones, right? That's got no gold in it. These have got no gold in them. These ones don't have any gold in them. Okay, it's just these ones here, and you can see a little bit of gold. And that's what goes into here. So that's these SATA plugs off the power supply unit. Done the ribbon cable. These ones here, these ones are not gold, but normally they're little gold things like that, and that's where they come. This is also a SATA cable, so I put them in with the same kind of thing like that, SATA cable. Okay. So anyway, so basically, yeah, this is what I do with my plugs. I've got these ribbon cable plugs. I got any kind of plugs with just pins where I need to just process the pins. So you know, these ones with the pins, I just pull them out from the back or however I can, and most of these are fully plated. Okay, even the pins out of these little plugs, you know, some of them can be gold. So these are all the plugs that I process as pins. These are all my video type of cables, the old style, the new style, and these are all going to be processed in their own way. But yeah, so that's them. I got all the USB and the RJ jacks, just the actual sockets. So this is all USB stuff, so all this will get processed on its own. I've shown you the SATA. I've shown you these little black ones, mostly black with the little gold pins in there. We've got the server type of pins. We've got the RJ45 type plugs. And so yeah, so basically most of the pins, you know, if you want to sort your gold pins, it doesn't really make, well, it does make a bit of a difference whether you sort partially plated and fully plated pins, okay? Because these partially plated will also have all, you know, different levels of gold plating. Some of them are almost fully plated as well. And these ones are most common coming out of these type of plugs here. Mostly it's partially plated, so it's not fully gold plated. So these ones need to have so you can see there are some pieces in here that are fully gold plated, but they do have a little bit of steel on the end. So these ones need to be processed with firstly in something like a 50-50 solution of nitric acid and water, okay? And what that will do is that will remove all the steel off the pins. It won't dissolve the gold, it'll just remove the steel. And then you send it off to the second stage, which will be the just like the fully plated pins. These ones don't have to go through the first process of removing the steel because it's all gold. Okay, it's all gold plated. So what you need to do with these is you want to just put these through your aqua regia solution, which is nitric acid and hydrochloric acid, and that will dissolve the gold off the pins. Because these pins don't have metal exposed, they don't need to go through the first process of removing the metal. Even pins like you see these really fine pins, these ones are off a CPU. So they're CPU pins, so they're pretty much fully plated, but they have got a little bit of foreign matter inside that, you know, you might want to first clean out. But that's just how it goes. But majority of your pins are going to be fully plated. Now, one argument is, why bother separating? Because it can be quite a bit of work to, you know, separate all your little pins from partially plated to fully plated. And really, you don't really have to separate partial to full, because instead of you're going to have to run this through the first system of nitric acid and water to remove the metal. So if they're all mixed up, well, these are just going to go in there and then nothing's going to happen. There's going to be no reaction to these. They're just going to sit there whilst the metal in these dissolve away. And then when you're done, the whole lot is going to go into Aqua Regia anyway to then dissolve the gold. Okay, so anyway, that's them. Other kind of gold pins are all these little jacks and sockets. You know, most of these are all gold plated in some way, but they don't go into the pins because they've got other kinds of material on them, like this one here. Okay, so the only gold is the gold plating around there and this pin, and so these are going to be another kind of thing altogether. I'm not really sure how to process these kind of jacks, but you know, I'll still keep them, and that's for later on, because I don't actually refine stuff myself, so I'm just collecting everything for gold recovery, and I'll just, you know, let someone else do it one day. And obviously you got your gold fingers. As I'm scrapping e-waste, I'm getting gold fingers, you know, off the slot cards. Okay, I'm putting it straight into this bucket. So this bucket will be mixed of all kinds of stuff. To give you an example, this is the bottom of a normal bucket with plugs. I've emptied this out now, but this is the kind of crumble that you end up with at the bottom of your bucket. So I've got, you know, little pieces of gold fingers, I've got gold pins, I've still got little plugs, I've got some all kinds of stuff, probably a little bit of rubbish, pins, so still got a lot of stuff, all these to get rid of. But as you can see, there's a lot of gold pins in here, but they're all mostly partially plated. Now, rather than picking out the ones that are fully plated, you know, I'd rather, it's a bit of brass, I'd rather just you know, when it's really mixed, I'd rather just put it all into this partially plated stuff, and that way it's not gonna, the fully plated pins aren't going to affect the first process, and then when you get to the second process, they're all going to go through the same thing anyway. So if you really wanted to separate your pins, you want to separate your partially plated. And when we got partially plated, so let's give an example, like this pin here. You know, I don't know if you can really see it, but the gold is only on the end. So it's partially plated because it's got a gold on the end, but you don't really want all this metal, because you're only going to use up nitric acid to get rid of all this metal, right? And we only want this little piece of plating there. So instead, I can cut this off, cut most of it off, and so now it's almost half and half. So we've got the gold plated bit there, and we've got the non-gold plating there. So when we put this through the first process now, the nitric acid only has to eat through half of this pin, and we save nitric acid by removing as much of the non-gold as possible. Okay, yeah, so even here, like, say, this pin is gold plated, but this part on the end is not gold plated. So if you want to save your nitric acid, and you've got time, you know, you want to cut that little bit off. Okay, so now we've got this little bit. We don't need this. This is just steel or tin or whatever. And so now we've got the gold plated bit. We've still got a little bit, so it still has to go into the partially plated to get processed, but at least we don't have to worry about processing this and using up nitric acid to get rid of this. We can just get rid of it. All right, so yeah, there's really not much to it. As far as pins are concerned, if you choose to sort your pins, you can just sort them into partial and fully plated. You can keep these aside. Obviously your fingers go into separate, but with your plugs, I find it really a lot, it saves a lot of time when you're building up a lot of plugs to first clean these type, and then just store them, put them away, as you're processing, rather than, it doesn't really matter on the type of plug, it's more about how you process it. This one gets processed one way, these ones get processed another way, these get processed another way, and so on. So so when I go to process something, I'm going to grab this bucket and just process using the same tools, and just can keep going through this. You know, I get another tool, I can start on these, and I can just do these consecutively, so I'm saving a lot of time. And yeah, same with these kind of things. And also, if you're going to sell your plugs, instead of pulling out the pins, by separating them, it gives the buyer a lot more options. If you clean your plugs, then you make sure you want to get better value than with the plugs with the plastic all on them. So these are worth more because you've removed all the plastic. Same as these, you've removed the steel pieces. So once you remove the steel pieces, you kind of want to process them yourself. But anyway, the only other tub I've got is just my mixed rubbish kind of gold. It's all gold stuff, but it's just stuff that you know, if you're turning over a lot of e-waste, you need a bucket just to put all your loose stuff. So all the little bits, like from ribbon ends, you know, you'll see these pretty common on the LCD monitors, you know, the little printer things. So a little bit of gold there, and I just keep anything with a little bit of, that's got some gold on it, and that I need to process over time. You know, you've got little bags here of pins, you know, tiny little things that I haven't worked out what to do with yet. So yeah, so, but these are, you know, like these ribbons, these are mostly old stuff that have been sitting around. I haven't got to them yet, but you just want to cut this off. All you want is just this little bit of gold there. And so when I cut this off, I'll just throw this little piece back in and throw this into insulated wire. So you know, and you know, things like from the CPUs, when you're depopulating the boards, you get a lot of this stuff that needs to be processed, because you've got all the gold pins in there. Just got to work out a way to process these. These are from kind of printers. They've got the gold pins all here. So all this stuff is just mixed loose stuff that all contains gold, that needs to be done another time. All right, well, I'm not really sure what else to talk about with gold pins and plugs. You know, just yeah, aside from just, you know, telling you the importance of sorting them out will save you so much time later on when you go to remove the gold pins. So you're dealing with all the same things. I recommend, when you fill a bucket, once you fill a bucket, then start getting a few more buckets and start sorting your stuff out. And once you start filling up a few buckets, then maybe look for a larger containers for a larger storage. But you know, for other people, they prefer to, as soon as you pull one of these out of the computer, you cut the cord off. And so some people will just prefer, because if you're not doing a lot, they prefer to just take the plug off, remove the pins, throw them straight into the pin bucket, and then they can throw this away. And if you're not doing a lot of e-waste, that's probably the best way to do it, is to remove the pins as you go, because by storing them, you are building yourself up a big job in the end. But you know, it's gold recovery, so it's a pretty good job anyway, if this is what you're going to be left with in the end after scrapping. So yeah, just get into it and keep yourself busy and have fun. All right, catch you next time.